What's up everyone, it's Eternal with some more Raid. Today I want to look at gear. So I'm going to be looking through gear, stats, how you might want to gear characters up. Basically it's just going to be a whole episode on Raid Shadow Legend and gear and stats. So if that sounds like it might interest you, keep watching. Okay, so I was going to make something related to Clan Boss and maybe a video on how you can improve your damage and things like that. I'll probably do that tomorrow or the day after or whenever I feel like it. But in the meantime, because that's a little bit of a bigger topic, I thought that this might tie in quite well, seeing as you need to gear your characters for, say, Clan Boss, dungeons, and pretty much anywhere in the game. Now, it's currently the Fire Night tournament, so what I've been doing is going through and running quite a lot of Fire Night. Subsequently, I'm starting to build up my stun gear collection. So what I'm trying to do is gear up Senesha for Faction Wars in stun gear. So as you can see, I got 2 on speed here, so that's really nice because we know speed is a really important stat in this game. So I wanted to go through and talk about what makes a piece of gear good and what can make a piece of gear bad. Now you might already know this, but let's dive into it anyway and just see where it goes. So I would consider this here, this weapon, 6-star legendary, pretty hard to come by generally, a good piece of gear. It's rolled with 3 really solid substats, and then the flat HP is not a very good stat. So far, I've had 3 rolls because it's gone to 12, 1 on attack, 2 on speed. I would consider that good. Now, if 1 or even 2 of these landed on HP, the piece of gear isn't as good because, you know, you're getting flat HP, but you could potentially be getting the crit, the speed, the attack. So this piece of gear in particular looks like it's going to be quite good on a fairly offensive type of character, and it's kind of perfect for Senesha, for instance, who does have an AoE A1 attack. Particularly in Faction Wars, this can be useful just to try and get that 18% stun chance on everybody. So using the stun gear as an example, this being a good piece. Now, the main stat is obviously the most important thing, and for the bottom 3 pieces, that can roll pretty randomly to fix for the top 3. This is a piece of gear where the main stat has, you know, we've got the speed roll, so that's fantastic. It's a speed boot, that's really good. However, the substats are not fantastic. You've got flat attack, flat defense, and accuracy can be good on some characters, but on a Senesha, it's not really what I'd be looking for. I would be looking for crit damage, you know, attack, even defense or HP would be more useful to me, or to Senesha in this case, than the flat attack and flat defense. So I would be tempted not to take this to 16, but because it's a speed boot and that main stat is really what you're looking for, then maybe I would, you know, just for that 4-piece set. So that's another thing to talk about, sets. Now, the stun gear is a 4-piece set, and if you're, you know, trying to put that together, sometimes you're going to sacrifice, so you might put this piece on, for instance, that's not top tier, just to get that set bonus. It's the same with, say, lifesteal, or immunity, or something like that. But I would say probably lifesteal earlier on, that's something that you may experience. You know, you've got maybe 2 or 3 good pieces, and you're having to stick another 2 on just to kind of make up. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. This is a piece that I would consider kind of okay. It's hit speed as well, which makes it even stronger. I think speed is probably one of the most important stats in the game, and a lot of people undervalue it and underrate it, particularly earlier on. So this speed boot could potentially be, you know, quite strong and character changing just because it's a speed piece. This slot here is so important, particularly earlier on when your gear is not really top tier. You'll probably want to be going to, you know, putting that speed boot on. And if you can get to 16, you know, you're getting quite a lot of speed there. Look, I'm getting plus 83 on this character just from, you know, we've got bits here and there on gear, 18 speed on my helmet, and, you know, it all adds up. And you can also get it on your banner as well. You can see here, 16 speed on banner. And the more speed that you have, the more turns that you get, the faster your character can take the turn, the more damage. It's just so important. And A lot of people will struggle earlier on, be it clan boss or dungeons, even arena, just pretty much everywhere, because their speed isn't fast enough. So I just think it's a very undervalued stat. So I just like to highlight that for any of the perhaps newer players. Obviously, if you're an experienced player, you probably know all this already. But just going through and trying to get some stun gear, it's taken quite a while. Fire Knights takes a little bit longer. It's one of the more annoying dungeons. But unfortunately, that just landed on Resistance, which is arguably the weaker of the three stats here for Sinesha. Now, it's not to say this piece is bad, because, stun with Resistance might be useful in Arena. So it really depends where you're using the character and the gear, and that determines kind of if it's good or if it's not. So it's very situational. It's not kind of set in stone. And with the rate that Plarium brings out new characters, sometimes a piece of gear that you think has rolled badly, say it's maybe rolled on attack and HP. When Mountain King was introduced, attack and HP was, better. And I'll show you what I mean. Mountain King. Yeah, attack and HP. Now, it's worth, sometimes you might be like, oh god, it's a rolled attack and HP, it's not a great piece of gear. But then a character like this comes along, and suddenly that piece of gear that wasn't fantastic is now usable, and actually it's a really good piece. So it's just worth bearing in mind. So like I said, I'm currently undergoing a changing gear on Sinesha. I've been running her in Poison for ages, which is kind of okay. It's nothing fantastic. Stat-wise, quite good pieces of gear here. Got lots of crit, lots of speed. It's all nice. But I kind of want to get that stun gear on her. Pieces I would consider taking up, obviously this piece, like I've already mentioned, this is rolled really well. Even this piece here, not bad. So the main stat is obviously fixed, but you've got speed, crit, and HP. I'd be looking at the speed and crit predominantly. They would be the ones I'd be wanting in this scenario to roll with this character in mind. Like looking at this, like crit and resistance, if it doesn't roll on crit, resist is generally not a fantastic stat in dungeons. Speed resist, crit HP, so that's not particularly fantastic either. Generally, you're looking for speed on, particularly when you get to the mid game or even going into the later game, you're looking for speed. If it doesn't have speed on, it might be, it might not be the best for you. So if this didn't have speed on, say this was even crit damage here, the usefulness of it is vastly reduced just because speed is so strong. That's how strong it is. Okay, so I've mentioned a little bit how just because a piece of gear is rolled in a certain way that you're possibly not currently looking for, it might not be a bad piece, okay? So like this, like I highlighted, the resistance and speed might not be bad in Arena. It's fairly situational, and yes, maybe it's not what you're looking for right now, but it doesn't mean the gear is dead, it doesn't mean it's useless. It just kind of depends what character you're gearing, what you're gearing them for, like what role, and also where you're using them. So those three factors play a big role. Now next up, I wanted to talk about the accessories or the jewelry. Accessories are interesting because you can basically benefit from the flat stats, kind of more so than on your main pieces. Generally, you want to go for percentages on your bottom three pieces here, and as many percentages as you can on your substats. But if we look at the jewelry here, you're going to be going for, generally speaking, a flat stat here. So you'd be going for like flat attack, flat defense, flat HP. Now, Sinesha is a really good example actually. Because her attack is a bit lower and her defense is higher, she's actually going to scale better from flat attack than she would from percent attacks, but her percent defense here is going to fare a little bit better. So what I can do is, or you can do, is say stick a flat attack ring on her and then rank that up to boost her attack up. And that'll make quite a big difference. And the same way I put an attack banner on her with speed, I'm getting at least, I'm getting not too far off 400 attack just from the ring and the banner here. And that can make a big difference. Like she doesn't particularly have very high attack. She's got 892, so that doesn't scale very well. So it's worth bearing in mind the scaling as well. Now, let's take another character who has lower defense. Venus isn't a bad example, actually. Venus has got pretty low defense. She's got 980, which I would consider low. So what you can do is, you can go for flat defense on the jewellery here to try and boost that up as much as you can. Now, of course, gloves and chest I've gone for defense as well, just to try and boost that up. But I wouldn't deem this particularly high, but she's getting quite a chunk of that, a sizable chunk. What was that, 450? Just from the flat stats here, not even counting the percentage here. So it's really important that you can kind of benefit and capitalize on that. And I think another example is Miscurated, whose defense is even lower. So again, I've gone for HP here, but you can go for flat defense. And I think I would ideally go for flat defense here with HP and defense percent. So that can make a really big difference. So don't underestimate the power of your jewelry and your accessories. And it's, you know, you can get a lot of accuracy in a banner, for instance, and you can pick up a lot of speed potentially too. I think Sinesha, where is she at? Showed before she had, I think it was quite a decent amount, but 16 speed on a 6-star banner. That's quite a lot of speed. You know, 16 speed's nothing to scoff at. So the power of accessories is really not to be underestimated. That does require that you have to farm quite a lot of spider, but once you get to that stage, you can really power your characters up just by, you know, coming in, optimizing the accessories for whatever you're doing, for, you know, whatever needs you've got. So in Clan Boss, for instance, you might go for more defensive stats. For dungeons, maybe Dragon, you want to go and put a bit more attack on there to run through the dungeon faster, because you've already got it on farm. Basically, you're not pushing content, but you're just trying to increase your speed to farm a bit more. Or Fire Knight, for instance, which, you know, wherever the tournaments are, whichever dungeons you're running, you'll probably find that once you've got spiders to a reasonable level, these banners, rings, and amulets can really help out too. So they're not to be underestimated. Don't forget about them. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do for you guys is take a character, and this is really, really key, actually. When you're gearing a character, make sure you're looking at their abilities, because you need to understand what they actually do before you can gear them. So Shazar's a really great example. He places bombs on his A3, on his Cruel Fate, but decreases the detonation countdown by 1 turn if this attack is critical. So what you can take from that is that Shazar needs to crit. So he needs to get his crit rate to 100% or as close as possible. I've got him to 98 here. You also need to understand the mechanics. Now, what I mean by this is, in this case, bombs. The bomb mechanic in Raid. So bombs do not actually benefit from crit damage. That means crit damage does not increase the damage of bombs at all. Attack, however, does. So on a bomb character, you're looking for high attack, accuracy, speed, and in Shazar's case, crit. So you need the crit to activate this second part, the decreases detonation for Shazar. You need the attack to do more damage. You need the speed to actually take a turn to use the ability. And you need the accuracy to actually land the bombs, because they're a debuff. So you need to, you know, roll accuracy versus resistance, and then it goes through that whole calculation of if the debuff actually lands or not. So that's a really simple, kind of straightforward way of looking at it. So now you know that Shazar needs accuracy, speed, crit, and attack. And you can kind of go through this process with most characters. There will be some enigmas where you'll have to determine if attack or crit damage is going to be more beneficial. And a really good example of this is Coldheart. And that's because of Heartseeker. But again, you need to read the skills. So attacks one enemy, decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. So you're going to need accuracy to land the turn meter reduction. Has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit. So that means you can actually cap out at 70. And damage increases according to enemy max HP. So enemy max HP plays a very vital role in this. So the bigger the enemy, the more damage you can do. This is actually capped on places like Clan Boss, and they probably cap it on the bosses too. So there's a a maximum amount you can actually do, but you do hit very, very hard, and it's based on enemy max HP and attack. But crit damage will actually influence this as well. So you want to get her to 70% crit in total. I believe this is actually a bit higher. So yeah, I've gone 9 over there. So I could drop that down to 70 if I wanted. But crit damage is going to play a vital role here, as well as attack. So attack and crit damage will increase the damage of that Heartseeker. And then, like I said, you need the accuracy to land that. So knowing if crit damage or attack is more valuable for a certain character is a little bit more difficult, and that's a little bit more advanced. So that's just going to take some playing with, because each character is different. So you're going to have to just try that for yourself for the most part. Unless there's a guide on a specific character and they've already tried that and they can give you the answer. So that's really handy too, because it saves you silver, right? Now, another interesting case where it's very useful to look at stats is, like here we've got Tyrell, and his damage is based on defense, which means that all of his skills are based off his defense instead of attack. So the attack stat actually does absolutely nothing for Tyrell. Nothing at all. It is completely useless. It doesn't add damage. It doesn't do anything. Like at least defense and HP add something to attack characters. They're adding increasing the survivability. Whereas on a defense character, attack does absolutely nothing. For this reason, defense characters and HP characters can actually be a lot better than attack characters, just because they're not as... Tyrell is not squishy because he's based off defense, so you're putting defense on him, and B, that's going to boost his attack as well. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. Like, you're boosting his survivability and his damage at the same time. A bit like Miscreated, who's a HP character, so you get more health and your damage goes up. It's a similar scenario. So look at the characters you're gearing and then, go through their skills, like I said. Have a read of the skills. If you still don't understand them, maybe go check out a guide. But you can, look at, say, Tyrell and go, he places lots of debuffs, he's going to need accuracy. He's defense-based, he's going to need defense. And, of course, if you get more crit and crit damage on him, that will deal more damage. He'll deal more damage by critting. One thing on defense characters, the lifesteal set is really great, and that's because the value of health is, each health point that you have on your character is more valuable. So when you're getting that back through a heal or lifesteal, the value of that's a lot higher because your defense is so high, so to deal more damage to the character is more difficult because the defense is high, if you're still with me, hopefully. Whereas if I take someone like Miscreated, whose defense is lower, health isn't worth as much. He's going to take a lot more damage, so if he's getting hit for, 20,000 per hit, and Tyrell's getting hit for 10,000 per hit, or 5,000 per hit, or less, then the value of his HP is a lot higher, whereas Miscreated, his HP isn't worth as much, if that makes sense. Like, he is based off HP, so that's fine, but because his defense is low, he's going to take more damage. So that's kind of how I look at it and see it. I mean, you could just say, all health is worth the same, you'll just take less damage with more defense, but yeah, it's however you want to see it, really. But on defense characters, because they're taking less damage, lifesteal's really great because they can kind of self-sustain very easily. And even a character, Venus is a good example. She's built for Clan Boss, so she's got more HP, more defense on her. So lifesteal is quite useful. So it's just something to bear in mind that lifesteal, 4-piece, and defense characters often go quite well together. Now the cool thing is that sometimes characters can be used in a variety of different gear sets, so it's not really set in stone, like this is the best, or, it depends what you're using them for. For instance, like Razin works very, very well in lifesteal gear, but if the rest of your team, maybe you've got a bad L and he doesn't need that suddenly, so you can change up his gear. Or maybe you've got, a Whisper and you've got Relentless gear and you want to run her that way, or you want to run her, she's probably going to benefit most from that, but okay, let's think, Ithos. So Ithos, I've currently got in Relentless, but you can run him in Savage, you can run him in crit damage, you can run him in all sorts, it's up to you. You can try out different things, experiment, don't feel like you're boxed in and you can't. Experimenting in these type of games is going to probably get you the best results, whilst also costing a little bit of silver. But if you're really trying to be an endgame player, then you'll probably have to experiment, because most of the time people aren't going to tell you how to win at the game if you're already further ahead than them, you know what I mean? So, just something to bear in mind. I think I've covered most of what I was intending on covering in this video, so just don't neglect the importance of amulets. When you're gearing characters, make sure that you're looking at their skills and seeing what they might actually benefit from and need. So if they've got debuffs, like a stun, you're going to need some accuracy to land that. But, because he's, for instance, miscreated monster places a shield and allies equal to damage inflicted, he's also going to want to deal a lot of damage. His damage is based on HP. When he's using his ally protect, he gets a continuous heal, and he heals the champion by 50% of their max HP. So he's going to benefit from HP generally, because his damage is based off it. But he'll also benefit from crit and crit damage, because the more damage you're doing, the bigger the shield. So you can actually increase his shield by increasing his damage, which is kind of cool. But you can increase his HP as well. You're going to want some defense to boost up his stats, so the HP is worth more. So the more defense you've got, the more your HP is worth. But also speed. Speed is really important to actually take those turns. So the more speed you get, the more damage potential. The only thing you need to bear in mind is that buffs on your characters will wear off faster, but your characters will also to take turns faster. So if all the speed of your team is increased across the board, there's no issue. But if you've got one really fast character and then some slower characters, just bear in mind that that faster character is going to drop debuffs faster. The same if you're using Relentless gear. So for instance, Whisper will drop debuffs faster. So if there's a counter attack on her or an increased attack, she's going to take lots of turns, so they're going to fall off. So that's why things like Relentless don't typically work very well with unkillable or block damage, things like that, because you're taking extra turns and then suddenly you're dead. So just remember to look at the synergies, look at the skills, look at what gear sets could be useful. But sometimes broken sets can work too. In the past I've talked about broken sets, and for instance, this Coldheart here, she's only got one speed piece here, but I built her in broken sets for damage. And some characters you can do that, so don't be afraid to try different things, depending on the purpose and kind of the intent, what you're going to use that character for. But yeah, so don't neglect jewelry. Substats are really important. You want to go for percentages, like I said earlier. Generally, the flat stuff, get rid of it. It's not very good. Speed boots, even if the substats are bad, can still be decent just by being a 5 or 6 star speed boot, and you're getting 40 or 45 speed out of it. I would say this speed boot is okay. It's Destroy, so it's not the best set, but it's got an attack roll, crit damage, accuracy. The resistance is kind of there. It's not very useful, but the crit damage, the accuracy, and the attack are all very useful stats. So just because the set is not the best doesn't mean that you can't use those pieces individually as strong pieces. So maybe you want to go for, I don't know, maybe a 4-piece lifesteal on a character, but then you've got 2 individually very strong pieces of gear. This is a good example where I've got an attack chest that's, it's curing. Nobody, I don't know anyone in Raid that uses the curing set at all. But as a broken set piece, this is really nice. It's got crit damage and speed, and it's an attack percentage chest, which Coldheart benefits from. So just bear that in mind. Broken pieces are not always bad on certain characters. Generally, it's going to be damage dealers. So for instance, Sinesha here could be used as a damage dealer in a broken set. In fact, she wouldn't need any set bonuses at all. I do actually have a Toxic on her, but I am looking to utilize a set bonus here, the stun. Generally, set bonuses are better because you're getting something on top of that, but it's just a case of farming lots of gear and actually having pieces that are good. And sometimes until you've got those good pieces of gear, going with broken pieces is actually stronger. I think I've covered everything I wanted to. I didn't want to make the video too long, but I did want to hit some key points. Speed being very important. Don't neglect or underestimate your accessories. And, you know, you don't always have to use sets. Sometimes broken sets are okay. If I've missed anything, drop a comment. Like, I tend to miss things sometimes, and that's fine. You know, we're all human. But if there's anything you'd like to see me go over, talk about, or if you've got any bits of information you don't want to chime in, feel free, drop a comment. Love to hear. I think that's going to be me for this one, because this is going to end up being a little bit longer than I intended. So I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you've enjoyed this.